Luigi Mangione. Does that name strike a chord with you? At this point, I don't know who hasn't heard of this man. In some circles, his name will be infamous and go down in history as the man who shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. But in other circles, Mangione is a hero and the face of anti-capitalism, anti-establishment, anti-government, and the anarchist movement that is taking hold of the minds and hearts of the young and impressionable from all walks of life. These people, the so-called revolutionaries, who are really degenerates, don't hide their disdain for America and its systems. In fact, their ultimate goal is to destroy it, just to make a point. Now, what is this point? The point is anarchy. This is the total destruction of a civilized society. And those who want this want it because they desire power. These souls have an aversion to the law and a disdain for a society that values law and order. You must understand this. Mangione and those who follow him do not like the idea that others are in charge. These are the same people who don't like that they have a boss at work. They hate the police. They hate the rich. They don't like white people, particularly white men. All of the above are perceived as those in positions of authority. They have an aversion to authority and law, and this includes moral law. This is why they are fighting for equity via the Democratic Party. You see, they want to be marginalized because it puts them in a position to try and seize power wherever by any means necessary. But this is about more than making a political statement. This, my dear friends, is indicative of a breakdown of what we thought was a civil society, and that is the entire point of this commentary. The issue here is not about healthcare expenses or denied claims. It's about a man living in a world that he believes is unjust, and he sees himself as the savior that is worthy to be praised for a blood sacrifice that was made in vain. In short, Luigi Mangione is a psychopath, and I'm well aware that the mainstream media is inadvertently praising the inhumane and violent actions of this man. And that's really interesting because the very people who preach about ending violence, they're anti-war people, they're anti-stigma, and they always talk about inhumanity toward their own kind, have no problem with the killing of Brian Thompson. Apparently, murder is justified, but only when the person is a wealthy white man in a perceived position of authority. What we need to understand is there is demented psychology at play here. These are primitive-minded people who are really hypocrites. Friends, that's a doozy. And I actually want to get into all of it because we ignore human nature. We all like to be praised for giving to charity and doing good deeds, but when we're shunning the dark side of our nature. We hide from evil, and this evil is in all of us. We are envious, we're covetous, we're sanctimonious, we harbor ill will towards others, and we self-loathe. But the worst are those who accuse others of evil and condemn them in an open forum for the world to see. Those who do that do it because they want the masses to beat and kill the accused. This is depravity. That's why people stoned people in the open years ago. That's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing a primitive, barbaric kind of behavior. And this is exactly what Mangione did to Brian Thompson. He accused him of his sin, ranted openly about his disdain for the wealthy corporate heads, and then he took him out in what he believed was his moral obligation. I'm here to shed light on this dark, cold-blooded killing and say that this was not an act of heroism or courage. It was the action of a madman. And in order to grasp this, one must have a comprehension of the fragility and fortitude that is man and his mind. Friends, that's why there are so many people saying that Mangione was in the right to be angry and also in the right to kill. To the lawless, there is no divine justice. because there simply is no God. Mangione, in an act of the ultimate defiance, believed himself to be God, the author of divine justice. Therefore, in the eyes of Mangione and his followers, man can do whatever he wants to do, no matter how he feels. It doesn't matter who he hurts or what he destroys. And it doesn't matter the cost. But that is the definition of evil. It is the outright defiance of moral law. So just what is this law? It's really interesting. I don't need to outright say it, because those who have the law live by it. They live according to their heart. For you see, laws on books, jails, law enforcement, that's not needed for people who live by the law. All of that is for the depraved, and it's for the purpose of curtailing their barbaric tendencies. Which brings me to another important point. Why did Mangione take the life of Thompson? And in order to answer this question, we need to go back to the beginning. The fact is that the foundation for truth, which is also reality, was never firmly anchored within the soul of Mangione. And there will be people who say that what I'm saying is unfair, especially those who may have taught him, parented him. They feel that they, of course, did the right thing. They reared him the best way that they could. And we know that Mangione was well educated. He had 2 degrees. A lot of people are saying he was so intelligent. Why did he do what he did? We don't understand that. Well, many people, dictators, some of them were highly intelligent. Friends, that has nothing to do with it. Because you see, had Mangione read true literature, he would have discovered the secrets of human nature and of the inner conflict that he himself was facing. Friends, he was reading books that were giving him the impetus to do what he did. That's what he wanted to read. That's what he was interested in. I did a talk recently about those people who want to be recognized as morally upright. I called them do-gooders, and Mangione was one of them. These people, they look down on others, believe them evil, and their mission in the world is to go on a crusade for moral cleansing. And it's unfortunate, but Brian Thompson's death was the reckoning that all of the do-gooders so desperately desired. Mangione wanted to be exalted and revered like a god for his action. And in some arenas, he actually was. You see, it must be understood that for the do-gooder, the highest moral is murder. So what I want to make clear is that this is a perverted justice, a satanic justice that perceives goodness as evil and evil as goodness. That's why Mangione and those who follow him can't see that his action was evil. And let me explain how this unfolds, because that's really who I am. I'm a philosopher who's intrigued with the evolution of man and of human nature, because in order to understand ourselves, we must understand our nature. Friends, when I use the word bad, what I actually mean is something that is unfruitful, something that is ill-productive, and does not promote evolution or advancement for mankind. And what we're talking about here is a symptom of mental illness. And this illness is what gave birth to Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Castro, and other terrible, terrible men of recent history. But what exactly is this illness? Because I've been vague. I've been saying it's just a mental illness. No, friends, let me tell you exactly what it is. It is the renunciation of reality, which is also known as nihilism. There is within those who suffer from this illness a failure to discern truth from falsehood. These people are haughty and have a false sense of self-worth, and they rely on people to build them up because they are really diminished. And this form of mental illness thrives when there is adoration and exaltation from the collective. You see, these sick souls are powerless without their support system. They derive their self-worth from the tribe. It is from their tribe that they seek their validation. And that's also why they perform unspeakable acts such as violence, terror of all kinds, and murder. these acts of violence and terror instill fear in their followers. And for them, it warrants respect. Friends, these tyrants are not heroes. They are diminished souls who seek an identity in others. They want to be worshipped like gods. They hide behind the virtue of goodness, but everything they do is evil, and their ultimate desire is not for social justice, but it is for power. Make no mistake about it, Mangione's heinous actions are to be condemned. There is no justification for gunning down an innocent man. Those who think that this cruel act was justified suffer the same mental illness as Mangione. Wow. Let's talk about the role of the media in all of this. The media is very powerful in the sense that it has an ability to spin and manipulate news in a way that can evoke public sentiment related to their causes. And for instance, in the case of Mangione, there were some news outlets that have rightfully called him what he is, a cold-blooded killer. But then there are other outlets who have chosen to air various reports about the failures of the healthcare industry. I've read articles about patient claim denials. I've watched stories about patients claiming that they're victims of scams by the healthcare industry. It just seems like all of a sudden, the media felt the need to inundate the masses with stories that evoke feelings of disdain toward Thompson and the entire healthcare industry. And airing and printing these stories was an unscrupulous move. The intention was not to inform the public for the purpose of a call to action, but to stir the pot. Everything that the media seeks to do seems to rouse man's primal instincts of anger and fear. Friends, this is evidenced by what they did during the pandemic and what they did during this past election. They did nothing but fearmonger. I think that most Americans are fully aware that there exists a broken healthcare system, but this is not the time to highlight it. It should have been highlighted during the election cycle. And if they were responsible journalists and did their job, then that would have been taken care of, and we would have been talking about it. What Americans really need to know is that Luigi Mangione is not a symbol of justice, but the epitome of barbarism and the collapse of social order, which is what constitutes justice. The reason we should concern ourselves with this is because without order, we can't have a civil society. Think about it. Do you want a society where random people can be killed for sport? Just because somebody or some group doesn't like that person? Or the person could even be you. That's what this is about, friends. Barbarism was the cause of collapse in every civilization known to man. And I don't care what books you read. I've read many books about the collapse of civilizations, and they give all of these different stages. They talk about the economic situation. Friends, behind all of that, the economy, the polarization, at the heart of it, the very foundation, is a loss of God, a loss of order within the human heart. Wow, this is a mouthful. You see, it's the renunciation of divine justice and natural law. That's the threat to democracy and social order. Those who have renounced divine justice have lost their humanity. And where there is a loss of humanity, depravity is all there is. Friends, we can no longer ignore human nature. The root of societal discord is incivility, lawlessness, and barbarism. The highest society thrives in love. Where there is no love, there is anarchy and chaos. If you like this kind of content and you would like to hear more, please like, subscribe, or follow. The time is now.